Hello, Annabelle. How are you?
Hi, Tamara.
Look, in your honor, you know, I
My
went through all the
honor,
trouble.
Frida, you're carrying her headdress. How beautiful.
Exactly. I just didn't think it was appropriate to have a one.
The monobrow. We'll do the whole thing like that now.
A bit weird. How are you? How are you coping right now?
Actually, well, it went through phases. The first 3 days I came back from the States, I was just watching the news the whole day and became very lethargic. Then I thought I should get into a routine. So I started doing some, Pilates stretches and getting into a spring cleaning frenzy.
Very good.
Now, 3 weeks or 4 weeks later, I started painting. So any
Oh,
wall,
wow.
door, or plinth in my old house that needs a bit of loving and care, I'm like, eh. So I think I'm developing an injury. So this is a good break from the painting.
Very good. Excellent.
How about you? How are you coping?
Well, it's strange because obviously I do teach every morning and I take the class as a teacher, and that keeps me a sense of routine. And obviously, there's a lot of work to do for the company in terms of planning and replanning and being in touch with venues and tourings and things being cancelled, and just constantly, it's like a constant moving schedule that we have to think basically every day as we hear news, as we try to guess when things will change.
Yeah,
So yeah, at the moment it's not easy,
yeah, it must
but
be very hard to
everybody is. I mean, still, I feel so lucky that I can be at home. So I cannot complain. It's just a
yeah.
strange time for everybody.
Planning seems for me very surrealistic, as in we don't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen and how we're going to go back out of the lockdown. I mean, right now here in Amsterdam, we're going slowly out of the lockdown in 2 weeks.
Okay,
But
that's
probably
nice.
not within month for, dance performances. So we'll see. Who
Yeah.
knows? It might be a miracle doctor finding a cure.
Yeah.
We'll give him,
Yes,
the, the prize, Nobel Prize for saving us.
that
Let's
would be
see.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about broken wings.
Yeah.
So I approached you to commission a work, and you were very clear in what you wanted to make. Tell me why.
No, you were very clear because I remember I came to you and you said, no, no, you sent me an email and you said, I want you to make a work for the company, a one act, short, 45 minutes maximum. And it has to be about a woman in literature or history that was damned and doomed. And you gave me a list of all those women, which I thought were really interesting. And so for a month, I was, thinking about it and I kept popping, Frida kept popping, but it was not on the list. So after a month, I thought, you know what? Whatever. I'm just going to tell her, thank you for that list, but how about Frida Kahlo? And your reaction was amazing to me. You're like, yes, I love Frida Kahlo. So I was like, bingo, let's do it then. So that's how it came about.
Oh, good. I didn't remember that I gave you a whole list.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering if I should watch it because maybe, there's a nice theme for another piece.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
go for it. Yeah, go for it. No, I'm glad you ignored it though. Your idea was much better, obviously. So I guess from you, I mean, I know why I like Frida, but I'll be interested for me to hear why you felt you wanted to make a piece about Frida. Because you've
uh,
made two now, so obviously she's very important for you.
Yes, she is. Well, I saw the movie. I knew about her work, obviously, and we all know the portraits that she made of herself, which for me felt like she was a precursor of the selfie, me, myself, and I. So it was intriguing to watch and definitely compelling and straightforward, but I didn't understand why it was worth $8 million. And then I saw the movie with Selma Hayek about like 17 or 18 years ago. And then I got to know her life and
Mhm.
why she made those paintings. And then, yeah, that struck a chord of, what a woman, what a legacy. And then I got to see more of her work. I got to read more about what she meant in the symbolism of that work. And it was so, yeah, rewarding to do a ballet about that because it's so visual. And at the same time, I felt that I wanted to share with an audience that the more I knew about her, the more I liked her work. And so I wanted that same process for the audience to happen.
It's interesting because I kind of went in the opposite direction of you.
Okay.
which is perhaps why I didn't consider Frida as a potential ballet, because I was completely obsessed by Frida as a teenager. And in Spain, Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera both, like, you know, because of our connection with Latin America, is huge. And there was fascination as well, because she was quite a feminist. So I just remember as a teenager reading her diary, reading everything about her life, her relationship with Trotsky. And I loved her art. I absolutely loved her art. But the more I knew about her, the less I liked her.
Okay.
The more self-indulgent I found her, you know, and in fact, I agree with you that she was a precursor for the selfie. It was all about her.
Yeah.
And I felt that she did the same in her real life.
Yeah,
and
but I guess, you know, when you're stuck, like us all now,
yes,
when you're stuck in your room and, you know, she was not always bedridden, she was not always in a wheelchair, but she couldn't, you know, go out on long walks and see as many people or go to many performances that we would be able to enjoy. I think that what you see also on social media, it becomes, you become the subject of your day. And
yes.
that was the only way that she could, you know, separate herself from her pain. And the fact that she was stuck there is the escape of going into that painting. What I have now with my walls, you know, I paint one wall and then I see the door next to it. I'm like, well, that door needs to be painted too. So, you know, you get absorbed. And I think so I understand more and more about her. And I appreciate that she puts the woman with no frills. It's not, you know, how we know how women are made pretty is she's not trying to enhance herself in that sense. It's another kind of woman. And yeah, I kind of like that. And the dichotomy between, you know, the hyper classical, elegant ballerina. How do you gonna put, you know, how are you gonna put, you know, Frida on stage with those two, aesthetics, actually.
So we have some questions from the audience. So from Michael, he was curious to ask Ms. Lopez Ochoa about her intention of using male bodies in this portion of the work. I love the gender subversion in the representation of Kahlo, and I hope you in the whole work will illuminate this intention. I'm just curious about what in the research of Kahlo suggested this gender switching and what it was like to create the movement with the dancers.
Long question. So there are a few reasons why I made that scene. First of all, I wanted to avoid too much the gesture of painting and put a painting on, you know, a frame. So I wanted it to be much bigger. And then I read about, you know, in Sotheby, they had sold one of her portraits for $8 million. And I thought, oh my God, so her paintings have become bigger than the woman herself. The way, you know, she didn't paint to think, well, I'm going to be famous and be rich with it. So that, and then I felt that, like I just said, for classical dancers, they're so elegant, but I feel that she's more sturdy and grounded. And therefore, I felt that male dancers next to Tamara Rojo would be bigger than her and grounded as opposed if you would be surrounded by 10 female dancers of E&B. So they had to be bigger, sturdy. And at the same time, I like the fact that she was playing with genders, you know, when she was 17 years old. And so that encapsulated all of that in that one scene and that choice of mine.
Yeah, I agree. It was very, like you say, very, it made you feel, or it made me feel in that moment, that was the moment she becomes strong within her own physicality, even though she's just after the big dramas in her life.
Yeah.
Still, suddenly she finds the strength through these Fridas painted. So for me, it was very natural that I chose men, because the Fridas she portrayed were always, even the fragile ones and the injured ones, were stronger than what she could be.
Yeah. And also, I felt like I wanted something, you know, about the choreography. I want something tribal. And you know, her and Diego Rivera were very interested in pre-Columbian art and artifacts. And when you watch them, they're quite sturdy and sort of this kind of shape and very frontal, like her paintings. So I felt for the choreography, I wanted almost a two-dimensional choreography. and not too much three-dimensional. Because yeah, it represented, my dream was that if you see the ballet, you've seen a few of her paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And her paintings, when I saw them for the first time, I thought it was, naive art. It was like almost like someone didn't know how to paint.
Mm-hmm.
It was much more into Salvador Dali, which is much more refined and technically so perfect. And so, yeah, that's the choice why it's frontal and almost, hieroglyph like Egyptian.
Yeah.
To emphasize the pre-Columbian art.
Mm-hmm. So now there's a question for me, I believe.
Ooh, shall I ask you the question?
Oh, go for it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Tamara, did you have a different approach to or a different feeling about playing a real-life historical figure as opposed to the many iconic fictional roles you have performed?
I do feel a certain responsibility when I am doing a real person because she existed. So there is less room for interpreting the intentions, especially with somebody that I knew so much about, because as I said, I was quite obsessed about her and I had read her diaries. So I did feel very informed about this subject and somewhat less able to veer too far away from what she said her intentions were, or what she said her feelings were at the time. I mean, still I was representing your choreography. So obviously there is a narrative that I have to respect, but the intention of the movement were very much fed by the knowledge I had of her life. And it's not the first time I've done that. And I actually enjoy it very much. I remember when I did Mary Betsera in Meyerlin, I became completely obsessed with that woman. And I found everything that there was in terms of research about her life, her mother's life, the society, her burial, everything. And the same way, I had the same kind of intensity of research with Frida. But that means that then once you have all that knowledge, in a way you become that person a bit more. And I also felt that hopefully that was helpful to you, that I was able to understand what you were trying to achieve.
No, I could feel while I was making, choices, I felt like she was a tomboy. How would she react when she's 19 years old and meeting Diego? How is she when she's 47 and being with him? And, all these paintings where she had him as a baby. So there was this unison between them that's, an obsession that wasn't so healthy. And I felt that you understood the choices I made, as opposed to why presenting her like that way. I was like, well, I read this and I saw so that was really, very helpful. Thank you. And, like I told you and Irek at the premiere 4 years ago, it's like, we made this together, because it's very hard for a choreographer to just put, steps and then hope for the best that somebody will, convey the person. They have to know themselves, because they are within the choreography and the character. And you came up so much with, little details in the reactions that I couldn't, maybe see from the front, which made it really alive for your partner and you, because it was a real action reaction, because every night I think it was slightly different.
Yeah.
And I think you both loved that. Like, what am I going to surprise you today?
Well, especially with Irek. You do have to be awake, because he's in the moment for sure.
Yes.
So I have another question for you. Physical pain is such a huge presence in Kahlo's work. What was your process for creating movement that express this?
Well, there are more pains. She always said that, she had 2 accidents in life. One was with the trolley and the bus, and one was the one that she, met Diego. And the meeting Diego was a bigger pain in her life. So she had many pains. And when you see her paintings, you have the physical pain. That's why she started painting. Then you have the emotional pain. That's, Diego coming into her life and not being what she expected from a love. And then you have the psychological pain, is, why is this all happening to me? and therefore drinking and, you know, taking drugs at the end of her life. And maybe she therefore decided to finish her life a little earlier than, because, you know, she saw the end nearing. So in a 45 minutes, I had to show all of this. But at the same time, when you read her diaries, it's not just about the pain. There's also a spirit and hunger for life, viva la vida. And so I didn't want to be portraying just a victim of the pain, but what it did, you know, it was a catalysator for something bigger and for a legacy afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So it was finding, when is she going to be stuck in the cube? When is she going to be really in pain emotionally? But at the same time, she's a survivor, and every day, you know, come on. You know, I also read some letters to her friends that she said, well, I have to start painting bigger paintings because my surgeries are costing so much money. That's also, you know, she had to find power and an energy in her. That probably gave her also a lot of solace. So yeah, the physical pain, I remember that, you know, with the dramaturg Nancy Meckler, she said, you have to once in a while have the shake of the leg, otherwise we forget that, you know, it's also about a woman in pain her whole life. So that's what we try to, you know, sometimes I wasn't so happy. I was like, oh, that we have to have that. Like, can we just please dance? But, you know, it's true that she might have felt the same. Hey, here I go with my wheelchair. I can't, you know, I would love to see that, you know, exhibition, but there are stairs. I can't go there. Although, you know, at the end of her life, she had her bed coming outside to her first exhibition. So yeah, that's how we try to carry on that physical pain through the piece.
Mm-hmm. So one more, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So another one for you.
Okay.
How influenced have you been by the film Frida Kahlo by Salma Hayek and Alfred Molina?
Yeah, I wasn't inspired by it. I was, you know, I was enlightened by the fact that I learned something, by the fact that I thought that, you know, I don't know if I would see the movie now, I would think it's a good movie because there's a development in storytelling. But yeah, I was definitely enlightened about a woman that I didn't know of. And suddenly I started, you know, being intrigued and appreciate her work. And that's what I actually want to do also with my ballet. So I did not look at the movie and say, okay, we're going to recreate that scene into movements. Not at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. For both us, from Ellie, what was the creative process and how long did it take to develop the work? I think it's better for you to answer that one.
Okay, so first of all, you invited me to make a work. Then I decided that it was Frida Kahlo. Then the first thing I did was reading books, her diaries, anything that I could find on her. And then we had a meeting in London, I believe in September or October. And I was in Manila in the Philippines. And I had not met my creative team, although I knew they were there. So I wrote the script, the first draft, in one night, and then took the plane the next day. And, you know, I presented it to the creative team. It wasn't completely right, but we thought, let's, you know, tell what we're going to do like that. And then we had a couple of meetings with the creatives for the sets, the costumes, the makeup that I was very much inspired by makeup artists that I met online on Instagram. Brian Burke is his name. And then we started the process of the music, which is about like 6 months. And with Peter Salem, I love that relationship because he sends me drafts, or he sends me, you know, version 1, version 2, and I can always choose where I want to go. And then we got into the studio in February. So you have June to February. And then we had 9 weeks of process. And from the 9 weeks, we were 1 week on stage somewhere outside of London. I don't know where, but a tiny theater. And then we went to
It was in Richmond.
Okay, in Richmond.
In Richmond, yeah, Richmond Theatre. We rented the theater to try and do some lighting and work on all the finish. Yeah, the finishing product, the lighting, the sets, the costumes of all the pieces.
Yeah, so I think the total was 10 months.
Yeah, good.
And how was it for you? I mean, how because you know so much more about how the piece is made from the behind the scenes, you know, the making of the costumes, the finding the makeup artists. I mean,
yeah. Well, it is amazing. I think the amount of work that goes into creating any work that ends up on the stage. Is so many people, so much creative energy, so many different imaginations coming together. And I think that's what makes particularly your work so beautiful and so rich, that you had all these people, each of them with an amazing imagination and creativity, coming together to recreate the world of Frida Kahlo. And I think I certainly was incredibly happy with the ballet, and the audience loved it. And I'm so delighted that then you went on to do a full length that I missed due to the previous storm issues that we were having in Europe as well. So it's been quite an eventful 2020 so far.
Yeah, 2020 is not being nice to us. Like,
not yet, no. I have high expectations for the second half. It certainly owns us. So talking about the future, what plans do you have in the pipeline?
Well, I was about to finish Vendetta. So that's Vendetta is based on The Godfather, a movie that I made 2 years ago for the Grand Ballet Canadien, and it was going to be remounted in Tulsa. And of course, every time I remount my work, I, question myself and change things. I was really happy with those changes. So that's been postponed twice already. So it was going to be end of May. Now it's end of October, but there's already a date in end of May 2021.
Okay. All right.
That's a big thing. Then I had Dangerous Liaison for the Royal New Zealand Ballet, which has been postponed for another 10 months later. And then I have Evita with Ballet Hispanico.
Wow. Okay.
Hopefully by January 21, we can make that happen. But since there's a lot of postponements, and in America, everything is, based on donors, and I don't know how that's going to change the plans. So yeah, there are things in the pipelines, but
you're always so busy. It must be so strange for you not to be creating, because most of the time I called you or we talk, you're in the middle of a creation or going to a new creation.
Yeah, it's a second nature for me. I feel the happiest when I'm in the studio, and I miss that. So I've started a duet for two dancers of Norway, the Oslo Opera, and so tonight I have another session. And
fantastic.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward for that 1 hour online, although they have children that sometimes come inside the screen. Yeah, it's I have to say, I think I'm a choreographer. I love the studio time. I'm not so keen on when it comes on stage and people have to watch my work. I enjoy less that moment, but the discovery from that white canvas to put that first paint. And then, 9 weeks later, you see that very first rehearsal and you're like, oh my God, why didn't anyone freak out? Because it was so clunky. And then suddenly it becomes, a reality that is not mine, because I forget my steps completely. And then suddenly it's like the piece of the dancers. And yeah, that's a wonderful process. I love that process. And I guess I'm doing the same now with my walls. So let's see if my husband let me go crazy with the colors.
I hope so. Maybe a Frida Kahlo painting ends up in one of those walls.
Yeah, somewhere. We have quite some paintings here.
Anyway, Annabelle, thank you very much for getting in touch through Zoom and for this chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope to see you soon in life, in person.
I hope so too. Yes. Okay. Bye, Tamara.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.